Me karakia tātou, let's pray. E te atua, homai kia mātou tō maramataka, tō rangi mārie, tō kaha me te araha, mō tēnei rā. Amen. Oh God, give us your knowledge, your strength, your peace, and your love today. Amen. So I have a dream, and I'm sure for many of you this won't be a surprise. I have a dream that we would be a beautiful, messy, authentic community where everybody is welcome, the small and the tall, where everyone is welcome, those who have got it together and those people who are just holding it together. That we would all be a community, no matter what colour our skin, what language we speak, what our postcode is, and that somewhere in all the messy and the mucky there would be a beautiful representation of what Jesus calls us to be. And it's like a little whisper, an early echo of heaven. And when we're like this, and there is noise going on in the background, and some people are just saying, give me the word, I just need to hear. And other people going, this is great. Thank you for letting us be messy together. We sit and we do stuff, not because it's always our first choice, but because we're called to be community together. And I get excited when I see glimpses of that. If you find this kind of service a little bit messy, I do want to encourage you to move forwards. We do have a lot of space at the front, and you're more than welcome to move forwards if you would like to do that as well. But I do have this dream where no one sits alone, where everyone feels seen, where we don't just talk to those people we already know, where everyone is valued. Anyone else? And we don't always get it right. I know there are times when I'm on a mission and I'm off to go and talk to that person because I just needed to sort out a thing, and I walk past 4 or 5 others that I could have spoken to. But it can't be all about what I do. We as community are all responsible for each other, aren't we? And the world is watching. One of our favourite verses, by your love will everyone know you're my disciples, the way we love each other. And so that's the umbrella that I'm holding up as we come to this next scripture that we're going to be opening today. As we're working through 1 Timothy, Paul, who has written this message, is writing to a young leader, Timothy, who's leading the church at Ephesus. And we've seen all the way through Timothy that there have been instructions for him to follow about how to lead the church. It seems like there are a few rascals. Has anyone noticed that? There are a few rascals there, and there are things going on. And Timothy, this young leader, is being given advice and guidance by Paul about how to lead the church. And so we've seen some things to do with loving God and others. Kind of good one to put at the top, isn't it? Focusing on our heart rather than our outward appearance. Living well in the faith community and in the wider community. Keeping the main thing the main thing. And today's chapter 5, caring for one another well. Now, if you've already had a look at Timothy chapter 5, you might have noticed that it's a difficult chapter to read all the way through. You're welcome to have a wee look at it or skim or read later on, whatever suits you. But there are lots and lots of details and specific instructions about how to manage people and how to guide the church. So instead of reading all the way through, we're going to take a few snippets of chapter 5, and we're going to look at what those principles are that undergird what Paul was saying and trying to communicate to his friend Timothy. Their attitude, one of the principles is his attitude. And it starts with verse 1 talking about how to treat each other. Let me read verse 1 for you. Paul tells Timothy, "Never speak sharply to an older man, but plead with him respectfully, just as though he were your own father." There's a few laughs in the front. "Talk to the younger men as you would much-loved brothers. Treat older women as mothers and the girls as your sisters, thinking only pure thoughts about them." What would it look like if we treated each other as family? I know there are lots of times where we do already, I see it. But if we spoke to those that are older than us as if they were a mother or father, and if we spoke to those peers and younger as if that they were our brother or sister. I know it doesn't always mean that it's going to be harmonious. Sibling interactions can be full of all sorts of dynamics. But let's take this with the heart that it is written in, and the way that Paul is wanting us to be reminded to speak to each other as a caring and loving family. It's a good way to start, isn't it? Verse 3, "The church should take loving care of women whose husbands have died if they don't have anyone else to help them. But if they have children or grandchildren, these are the ones who should take the responsibility, for kindness should begin at home, supporting needy parents. This is something that pleases God very much." The following verses have a lot of detailed instruction to Timothy about how to care for widows. And for those of us who understand the context that this letter is written in, there's no social service, there's no welfare state, there's no organised way of looking after people who don't have anyone to care for them, except for the church and the family. And Timothy is being given instructions to look after and care for those widows, especially whose husbands have died. Now, often when people married, the girls married people who were older, and it was very common for men to die first and leave ladies, widows, who didn't have anyone to care for them. And so the expectation was that their children would do that. And if they weren't able to, or they didn't have children, then it became the church's responsibility. There's a principle there that's really important for us to notice, eh? Family cares for each other. It's essential. And church picks up the slack. We're going to look at a couple more principles as well. Verse 17, pastors who do their work well should be paid well. Did anyone notice that? Should be highly appreciated, especially those who work hard at both preaching and teaching. But then, verse 24, remember that some men, even pastors, lead sinful lives, and everyone knows it. In such situations, you can do something about it. But in other cases, only the judgment day will reveal the terrible truth. In the same way, everyone knows how much good some pastors do, but sometimes their good deeds aren't known until long afterwards. So there's a section after the widow section where it talks about leadership. And in the end, God is the judge. It talks about how to identify people who will lead. So there's so many instructions to the church that Paul has given Timothy, and the detail and the organisation and the management of the people in Timothy's care. So I want us to take the principle of being a faith community that cares for one another well as our overview, as our umbrella. And as we look at that, I've got one specific focus that we're going to identify. I've sat with this, I've prayed about it, I have waited and discerned and wondered. And I need to acknowledge that the topic we're talking about this morning may be something that is a bit uncomfortable. And it might be something also that, from my perspective, I don't think we talk about often. Maybe not enough. It's a sensitive subject. And it might be a subject that's a bit close to home for some of us as well. We're going to be focusing on how we as a church, whānau, treat one another, especially those who are vulnerable. Especially widows, elderly, and I'm extending that to those who live alone. I don't want us to be inappropriate, but I do want us to be aware. Can you give me a wave if you live alone? We love you, and we're really grateful to have you here. And we are richer as a community because of you. And sometimes our elderly and those who live alone, it's not always elderly, are overlooked. I don't think that's God's plan for the church. So I wonder, what do you think the needs are of our widows, our elderly, of those who live alone? Paul's instructions are about resourcing, looking after their practical needs. Take a moment, speak to someone beside you and check in with them. What do you think the needs are of our vulnerable people, our elderly, our widows, those who live alone? I want to hear back from you in 30 seconds. What are those needs? Go. All right, you've got 5 seconds. All right, give me a wave. What are the needs that you've identified? You're going to have to wave to me so I know where I'm looking, and you want to hear a really big voice. Eugene?
Single ladies on their own needing men to help with lawns or hedges or just someone to help.
Okay, so physical help, whether it's lawns, sorting out the edges, whatever. Okay, thank you. Mari, what are the needs? Did you hear Mari? Someone to appreciate who you are and why you're still around.
Someone to ask advice of practical stuff like, do I need to call an electrician or can someone else fix this for me?
Okay. So someone else to check in about those sorts of puzzly things like, is this a job for an electrician? etc., etc. There's a lot to work out on your own, isn't there, if you're trying to work those kinds of things out. So another ear to bounce those things off. Vicky?
Support and accountability.
Okay, support and accountability. Thank you. Do you want to elaborate at all? What kind of support?
I was thinking spiritual and emotional and
Brilliant.
yeah.
Okay. Spiritual, emotional support, accountability. Greg?
Being acknowledged and recognised.
Okay. Being acknowledged and recognised. There's a few amens around there. Maybe our elderly need to be acknowledged and recognised. Tim? Okay, thank you. Physical touch. I've watched a few videos this week about elderly and lonely people. There's quite a few from the UK, and there are people who say, I go out every day to the supermarket not because I want to buy something, but because I need to see people. I need someone to talk to me. I need someone to touch. You know, the brush of the hand as you pass over the money, that might be that moment. That's heartbreaking. Yeah. Any more? Diana? Okay. Thank you. So inclusion in social settings, especially when our society can be quite couple-dominated. Yeah. So what does that mean for us as a faith community? How does that change anything? Are these instructions to Timothy in the first century, are they valid to us here? Are the principles important for us to notice? How do we look different? What do we do? I'm really conscious that we gather here on a Sunday morning and we're together for an hour or two and then we go away. It's one thing to acknowledge our elderly in this space. It's really important. But preparing for this message has actually left me with more questions around what it looks like for the rest of the week. How do we as a faith community, how do we as individuals, how do we as a household consider and support and include and lift up our elderly, our widows, those who are on their own, those who are lonely? My hope and my prayer is that we will actually have conversations that go on from here. That this isn't a one-off, yep, that she did a good job, thanks for that, but that we work this out together as a community. Because I believe that God's Spirit is in this. And that God is actually asking us as a faith community to consider these things ongoing. We have an Evergreens group that meets once a month. And it's a loyal little group that meets mostly for connection. And the last couple of months, they've talked to each other about their memories. They've shared stories. Tell me about your first car. Tell us about your first job. And it's been a place where our seniors have been able to tell their story. How important is us to feel heard? I wonder what might happen if we asked someone else to tell us about what brought them joy this week. What are you struggling with? Are you trying to work anything out at home and you need to decide if you need an electrician? You know, what are the puzzles? Maybe it's not just about talking, but maybe there's a lot about listening as well, eh? I wonder how many of our elderly need to be listened to. Can we do that?
Not just the elderly either.
Absolutely. So Murray's saying, not just the elderly either. We've got a video that I would like us to play. Oh, Sarah woke up. No. And there's going to be no sound on it. Oh, but it's something that catches our attention because there is an insight, I believe. Just whenever you're ready, Sarah. There's an insight, I believe, into what life may look like sometimes for those who are on their own, but not always. As Murray has reminded us, it's not just elderly. You might have heard the phrase that you can be lonely in a crowd. Let's make sure that we're not leaving others lonely when we gather. I wonder if many of you know about Brené Brown, very, very famous, popular researcher whose TED Talk burst on the scene quite a number of years ago, and she has written many books. One of her books is called Atlas of the Heart. And Brené says we can't talk about loneliness without talking about connection. She says loneliness is like hunger. It's our body telling us something. When we're hungry, we know we need to eat. Loneliness is telling us we need to connect. Loneliness is telling us we need to connect. We need meaningful social connection. There's a professor named Maren Gott who works at the University of Auckland, and she's investigating ageing. Here's a quote. She says, loneliness is hazardous. Almost a quarter of people who are lonely may be at risk of premature death. Previous research has equated the reduction in lifespan as a result of severe loneliness as equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Loneliness. So I have a dream. And I think we have a need for the community to be a place of connection. Some of you are aware that religious organisations are some of the last groups where people of all generations can be together. So much of society now is segregated by age. And when we are together, gathering on a Sunday morning, this kind of setting is really unique. We have young people. Thank God for the young people. We have teenagers. We are so grateful that you're here. We have middle age. I'm starting to own it. Empty nesters, retirees, and our super seniors as well. This is a unique setting. Did you realise that? And we as a community, as a faith community, just like the community in Ephesus, are responsible for looking after each other. Whether we live alone or not. Loneliness and isolation is a killer. And we need to be a unique community, a God-breathed community where we watch out for each other. There are a couple of beautiful psalms that talk about how important it is to be together, to be intergenerational, to have many generations together. Psalm 78 says this: "We will not hide these truths from our children," truths of how God has been faithful. "We will tell the next generation about the glorious deeds of the Lord, about his power and his mighty wonders." Psalm 145 says, "Let each generation tell of your mighty acts. Let them proclaim your power." How does that happen if we're not together? Be in community. It's how God has made his people to be. So, what's our response? We've got a couple of opportunities that are coming up as we wrap up. We're going to share communion together. Com and union, community. Being together. And union, pulling together. So we're going to share communion together, and I'd like to invite us to do that in a different way. We've got the elements on each side at tables, and I would like to invite you to come and take the bread and the juice in a moment and find someone of a different generation to share communion with. To look around and to make sure that there is no one sitting alone. I have a dream that sharing the Lord's Supper can be a sober opportunity and a sober remembering, and it can be an opportunity for community. And when whānau get together, when family gets together and shares a meal, it's not normally quiet, is it? Unless everyone's like super hungry in the first 2 minutes. So this is going to be a place where you can come and get the bread, you can come and get the juice, and you can chat. You can be together. And musos are going to come up and wrap up the service after we've done that. But this is a place to be community, to look out for our elderly, to look out for those who might be lonely. We're going to share the bread and the juice and remember that Jesus created this community, that Jesus died for each one of us, and that he puts us in community to look after each other and to be example to the world as we show his love to each other. So will you pray with me? And then we're going to share communion. Jesus, when you died, you took all the sin and the brokenness. You took the loneliness and the heartache. You took the broken people and the broken relationships. All on yourself. And you dealt with that. And we live in the messy middle where we represent you, we represent your kingdom, we receive the love that you have shared, and we seek to be faithful to the good things that you have done. And as we share communion now, we recognise that we can take a moment and we can represent you to each other. May we be a community that looks to you, that represents you well, that cares for each other, and that looks outside as well. We thank you for our widows, our elderly, those who live alone, those who are lonely. We thank you that loneliness reminds us that there is a need for connection. Use us, we ask. In Jesus' name, amen.